All right, so it looks like we are live. I'm Danielle, and this is Kayla here. And yeah, we just wanted to jump on today and discuss more about how to process through this life because we're all going through crazy cycles and just being human, and what that means. And especially in today's chaos that is ensuing across the planet,
Right.
which is why we labeled this video, being authentic in a world full of illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to be diving into personal aspects as well as like what's going on in the planet and what we're all kind of processing and dealing with. So yeah, I know for me personally, the last couple days and especially the last week, I've been feeling a lot of like energy and rage and just like, I've had enough, right? I'm just done with everything and just like what's going on in the world and being out and seeing people in masks and all the lies, right? Because all of us feel it, right? There's a frequency to truth and we feel it, right? And how do we maintain our truth frequency when there's all this like pressure to conform and comply and to do what everyone else is doing? And it brings us to our personal level of avoiding confrontation or not wanting to go against the grain out of fear for many reasons, right? Fear of survival. We do these weird things out of fear of being embarrassed, or if we are our true selves, that we're not going to be accepted, right? So it goes down to like a personal level, and then we're seeing this on a collective level where we have mass compliance, which is how communism happened, which is how the whole situation with the Nazis occurred, is because people just complied even though they knew that it wasn't correct, right? So we're all dealing with our personal lives and our cycles and trying to manage all that, but then we're also all in this ocean of this background frequency that's really in our face, literally, right? Of what's going on with this pandemic. And it doesn't matter necessarily like what you believe about what's going on. And I do hope that you question everything and start to think for yourself. But we're all dealing with it on some level, no matter like what side or what your opinion about it is. So yeah, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, and imagine like the effects too on how that's impairing to your relationships with yourselves when you have to go out and be somebody else for whatever you think others need, or this gas station you can't go into, and then you take that fear or that anger, whatever it is that you are feeling, about complying to maybe these things that don't resonate with your heart, and then you take that home, and then you can still be operating in that frequency too, and so it's causing like a lot of emotions coming up, within the collective, within the individual, from the macro to the micro, right? And so it's how do we get back, and what are the things that we need, or the tools that help us come back to who we really are, and what does it take for us to be who we really are in all moments, and walk out of your door, in that same frequency and awesome self. Say you meditate in the morning, or what I've done every day this week is get back out and hike. And it's like, if you don't feel supported, or you don't have anything to share with, go outside. The Pachamama, the earth is here for you, and she's been helping me tremendously, moving emotions and coming back to clarity within myself, my beliefs, and also showing me too where I'm out of I guess line,
Yeah.
or just out of my authentic connection within all my relationships and what I'm doing. Yeah, it's been heavy. It's like these things continue to build up within you. And if you don't process those, then you start resenting everything around you, because it's like, you don't know where to aim that. And so you can just get angry at everything. And And that's okay. Feel that, go into it. And don't forget to release, if you need to cry, like that's how we move energy. That's what crying is. It's that emotional release and acceptance of something not in alignment with you. And that's okay.
Right. Absolutely. And speaking your truth, not betraying yourself can be very releasing as well. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting times that we're in for sure. And, I had a really interesting call with my mom yesterday and just, I was like, oh, I've had enough of like everything. And, the truth should be the most important thing, because if we think of our life in just these two aspects, right, we either have clarity or we have distortion. So every time that we're just going along with things because everyone else is doing it, or, because the government says so, or the news says to, and if it's betraying ourselves, then we're operating in that frequency of distortion. And that's like created in like every aspect of our life. So really the most important thing to each of us should be that truth frequency. Like where is the clarity? And it doesn't matter if no one else agrees, right? Like, how do you be your full authentic self? Like, no matter what, right? No matter what is happening. And this is actually how we process what's going on in the world. And Kayla and I were talking about it earlier, how, like when I was talking to my mom and what I was telling her was, hey, I could give someone all the evidence, all these doctors are coming out about this. All these people that used to work at these companies are coming out about the truth, about all of this stuff that's happening. And it could even be someone that you know very well that you're giving them this information. But why aren't they looking at it? Why aren't they processing? Right. And the whole thing is that sometimes it's almost easier to not face the truth, right? We think so. Like, oh, I don't really need to, like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's easier to just think like, I don't need to do anything. It's going to be okay. Whereas if I process this, maybe there's some sort of responsibility, which your responsibility is to be in that truth, that clarity. And yeah, maybe some people are going to confront you because they don't, like, all of a sudden you're not in the frequency of like all these other people that are in the homogenized, distortion. So you're doing something different, and it could be like threatening to them. They're like, oh, no, you're not doing what everyone else is doing, because this is what made me feel safe, was being in that distortion. And now I'm confronting you because it's causing me all this cognitive dissonance. It's going against what I actually thought. So, we call them, what do they call, like non-NPCs, like non-player characters. Yeah. And, it's like not thinking for yourself. You kind of become just like this sheep.
Prime example, and I had asked someone, why are you getting the vaccine? What is it within you that, feels good about it? And it's like, well, I want other people to feel safe around me.
Oh my God.
How can you really control that? We can't. That's another illusion. It's how can you feel safe with yourself? How can you feel good in yourself? And nothing outside of you is going to do that.
Yep.
This is a frequency. This is a state of mind. This is a state of living and how you walk your life. You walk with always like seeing what's happening, before you take your step, or like, just like with the job, you send out your application, right? You don't just wait for them to come and try and find you necessarily. It's like, how do you take that initiative into your truth too?
Right.
And it's like, well, I feel like the first step is having time by yourself too. Go into that void. What really 2020, the whole pandemic crisis was really an identity crisis. It's like when you take away everything else, the regular day-to-day things that you're forced to do, and then you're meant to just sit there with yourself, and then you're surrounded by your family, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I like to do? Again, it's like, what are my gifts? And like, what a beautiful opportunity it's given humanity to go within, if you've chosen to go that route and be like, oh yeah, I'm really good at music. Maybe I'm going to start doing stream or teaching that, or just, these are examples, but it's like, we're all unique and we are all really good at certain things. And that's like where our purpose is. That's what we came down here to do. That's those are our potentials too. It's like anything that limits us, that's not correct. You
Right.
know, that the limitation is too, it's a recognition of potentially blocks within your body, within, blocks or misalignment with people, partners. I feel like there's a huge, and Molly McCord in her latest astrology video was saying, right now, this week specifically, we're really going to see ego coming out too, or else alignment with the divine. And I've been seeing that clearly within my own life with my partner, with friends. And it's been like, whoa. So I've been stepping back. That's why I've been hiking every day this week. And I'm like, okay, through my own eyes, which is connected here to my heart, I'm able to see very clearly too what lessons have came into me. And then what I need to let go of in order to move forward. Because if we're still in that same frequency, we are blocking the gifts and the potentials that are meant to come into our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like what you were saying with like all this stuff that's happening, it's like pressurizing us to find out who we really are, right? So we're seeing kind of two different responses to that. So some people may take the approach of, okay, I'm going to go into all these movements, right? Like I'm going to identify with a group mentality, right? Like identity politics, group thought, more like herd mentality, because it's like, and it's like all based on ego, which ego can also be, I'm better than, or I'm less than, right? Or they're better than me, or they're less than me. And so it's all based on that. Which again is not individuated, it's not differentiated, it's not individual,
and
right?
It still causes separation.
Yep. And it's, exactly. It just creates more division when we all need to empower each other, and some people are taking that approach where it's like, oh, I'm individual. I'm not necessarily in any of these groups. I have like a whole different kind of view on this situation. And it's really this like group herd mentality situation that is leading to mass compliance, mass, just being okay with what's going on, even though we all know deep down that this is not right. The evidence is there, and we see it. And like Kayla was saying, if we don't actually process this correctly, then we get this like resentment, we get that energy in our body because we're still betraying ourselves. We're still like, okay, like this doesn't feel right, whatever it is, if it's on a personal level or if we're like tapping into that collective level and what's going on. And really the only thing you can do is just be in your truth and not be afraid to speak your truth. And at the same time, when you feel that energy in your body, we want to be careful of not to project it out as like a blame or like, oh, it's because of this or that. Like, even if that seems really logical, because again, all of this stuff, it's like we're in a kaleidoscope, we're in a mirror that's like all the energies of this ocean, this time frame, this reality that we're in is trying to push us to become that diamond, right, of like uniqueness. And if we continue to like play victim or like push it out on others, we're not really seeing the point. But it does mean standing your truth. Like, yeah, I don't agree with forced injections, or I don't agree with like all these things that are happening, because we see where it's going.
Right. This is, I feel like the most powerful time in, I don't know, the past like 30 years for us to find our voice, not only like find out who we really are at that soul level, but use our voice in the correct way, instead of withholding what you feel about something because other people around you are ones, you think for something, or causing blocks within our own throats, everything that we don't stand up or speak about that we know, we feel or have a different view, we're gonna end up blocking ourselves of the gift. And it's like, Daddy, even earlier this week when you had so much going on, and like I came over and I'm like, all right, sit down, let's figure this out. I'm like, you got to tell your dance instructor, you know, you're going to get there in 2 hours, and like, let's just go through everything and see where, you know, you could be out. And what a what a beautiful like blessing and like way to then open your eyes to like, oh yeah, you know, this is kind of draining me. I need a personal day, you know? So now she's given herself that, which she needs and everybody needs every week, you know, that time for yourself to figure out, you know, what's working and what's not. But after she did that and she talked with her dance instructor, like she ended up getting a client and her instructor was so happy. She spoke, you know, and was able to then, you know, create a time and like a good schedule within that.
And it works for everyone. It's like better for everybody.
Right. It's like the blessings came in literally within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It was like boom, boom, boom. All just by her standing in that.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't mind me sharing.
I know,
but I was like, yeah, that's what the hell this is about. You know, when we make those choices and make those moves in our life, everything will work out.
Yep.
And if you're scared to do something because you're scared to lose something, just remember we have nothing to lose but ourselves.
Absolutely.
When do you want to find yourself and live your truth and have things that work out?
Yeah. And we have so much pressure to live up to other people's expectations or, you know, so we see that in the collective level with the mass compliance. And then we see that in like a personal level with like, okay, your boss or your clients or the emails and the phone calls and the friends and the like, you know, all of these things that we want to get to, or like, so it's really about too, like, not just like expressing your true self, but like, where is your energy? You know, where are you giving it away? Because it's like, you feel obligated or you feel pressure. And that's the whole thing too, is like when we speak in our truth that, oh, it's better for everyone, right? It's not just like you being selfish, but it's like, we're each here to find our voice, to communicate what we're experiencing. And that empowers other people to do that as well. And then what we find out is that, oh, like now this brings clarity. Now things flow. We're not in distortion. We're not in resistance. And it kind of like frees up that like tension that was there. And it just allows us to go with our momentum and all of that to actually do things that are satisfying. And so that our energy is being used correctly. Right.
Exactly. And you have more of it.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the things that, you know, are, I guess, correct.
Yeah.
But aligned with you. And so this is a really intense time, but also the greatest potential here within humanity to stand up for yourself. Stand up for your family, clear out, you know, it's like when you do healing for yourself, you're healing and clearing your whole generational timeline, your ancestors, you know, the future children. Like this isn't all just for us too. You know, this is for every human. And by standing too, like in your truth and with that voice, you send and you put that energy out in the field, which others can feel and grasp onto, and then feel empowered enough to make those shifts within their own lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you can even kind of think of it like energetic, right? So it's like if we're doing things that are fulfilling, like our energy is like freed up and we're able to vibrate in that truth frequency. Whereas if we're like betraying ourselves or if we're going into the group herd mentality because, you know, it's easier to think that way because we don't have to think, right? You don't have to think and you're just going into this stagnant, like the energy stops and like it's cold, you know, and it's very stagnant. And then you just feel like you're not generating all that power and energy and ability and you feel bogged down. So it's really like that simple. It's like, where is there distortion and where is there clarity, right? And what are you not speaking? What are you not saying? Right. And being objective, because we're each here like communicating our consciousness and like how we see things. So if we clear that up and make it not about like a victim consciousness, like, oh, this is their fault or whatever it is. And now we can just say, okay, this is what I need. This is what I'm experiencing. What are you experiencing? Right. Like, okay, now we have more clarity because we actually brought it out into the open. We communicated about it. Everyone was feeling it. And we're not just ignoring it. That is like our responsibility, right? To to be truthful, to stand in that authenticity. And, the fear is that, oh, we're going to be rejected, we're going to be confronted, we're going to lose something, all of those things. And what really happens, though, when you hear someone being truthful and authentic, you actually respect them, right? When you hear someone say no, thank you, or like it's a boundary and they're not just going along with everything, we tend to give them more respect. So it's opposite than what we would think. Now, sure, if you're speaking out about like these things that are going on in the world that are highly controversial, you're going to get both responses. People that are like, oh, you're dangerous, because they're in fear, right? Because they literally cognitive dissonance, like they cannot, like the way that their mind works and the way that they're holding on to what they believe is now conflicting with what you're saying. And so for them, it triggers a survival response that like, oh no, I'm wrong, I'm not going to survive. It's like a genetic, primal reptilian way that the brain works. And, there's a lot of other people that are showing that there's a whole other higher consciousness and that many things can be true. And we can talk about many different things and just being open. And even people like us who question everything, there's always like our beliefs can change still,
Absolutely. Just because I'm one way here in this moment, I might have an experience. Information won't ever shift me, but usually it's like the experience, because right, we have information and experience, and information is really only valid, at least to me, if there's experience to back it.
Yeah.
And it's such a blessing, but it's also freaky. And there's a lot of support out here, for everybody. And the biggest support we need is with yourself. How are you showing up for yourself? Can you go to sleep at night and you feel good with the choices and the way you walked that day? And also it's like, how vulnerable, how honest can we be with ourselves? Can we be that with others and our loved ones? And then can we understand too that our experience and our reality is going to be different than everybody else's. So anytime somebody's trying to force an experience or a belief upon you, it's be wary of that. And what a great opportunity to step back and be like, do I really align with that? And the more you start practicing, the word integral choice making came up, the stronger it gets. You create these new neural pathways that then open your mind to even thinking those ways, and to thinking about you and not just going along with the program. So, don't live your life with what you see around you. Live your life according to your heart.
Yeah.
There's been so much pressure with, toilet paper shortages, to mask wearing, to vaccines, to all of these things. And, it hasn't really phased me until it kind of got to the vaccine state.
Yeah.
And the last time I had a immunization was a flu shot one, and I got so sick because I used to work in hospitals and in the Western healthcare field, medical field. And I knew in that moment too, because I wasn't just like flu sick. My body was rejecting the chemicals within that. And I don't know, I don't usually speak about political or, I don't really get in that arena. I guess since I was a kid, I always could relate to being an anarchist because I just want to raise chickens and grow my own food. So, but I don't know, the political agenda within that, just trust in yourself. And if your heart's telling you to do that, then go ahead and do it. But just know by you putting chemicals in your body, you're not going to change the world. You will change the world with your voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been
Took it there.
yeah, your voice is not powerful. It really is though.
Right.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about it too. Like if we just zoom all the way out to the most macro, right? If we start to see that everything that's happening always is trying to help us to access higher consciousness, even though it seems like it's a crazy, and it is a crazy time, right? So it's like whatever your consciousness is, because you're in a vehicle that processes consciousness, like your experience of life. And like what Kayla's saying is like you can expand that. And there are tools that help you do that. Kayla and I are both into different systems and work together to provide people with the codes of ways to access this and to have a deeper experience and understanding of your own life based on what you're processing for consciousness. If we start to see things that way, we can shift our perspective and actually go along with like, okay, what does this mean to me? What is this for me? Right? Like, and what is it calling out of me? What am I here to say? And it's not something you have to like sit there and think about, but you start to have a different experience about it rather than living based off conditioning, which is like, oh, well, I don't, I'm going to get the vaccine because I'm tired of people asking me if I got it, right? I'm doing it because of them, right? So now we're no longer the authority.
Right.
The authority is the outside world, and that's not correct for anyone. We're each here to be our own authority, to be able to access that consciousness. And that's the only way is if you are your own authority. And if you're not, then you're just a non-player character, an NPC, a person that cannot think for themselves and literally is just like degenerating, and there are a lot of us that are popping out of that. We're popping out of the matrix, out of the illusion, being authentic, even in these times when it's very polarized and difficult and controversial. And that's having a huge impact, that like for ourselves and for others. And we're seeing how important that is. And I think that that's probably what the world is showing us now. It's like when we're not in our authority, when we're giving other things power over us, this is what happens, right? We have like control coming in from all areas, right? Because we're giving it to them. We're saying, yes, please control me. Let me know when I can be free.
Right.
And that's not how freedom works, right? Freedom takes courage to be in that truth. That's the only way, right? So we think that complying is the way to get freedom. And that is like the biggest lie, right? And even if we're not talking about global things or the world events, if you think about in your life, like, oh, I'm just going to be a nice person to my partner, even though I'm betraying myself and I have these needs, I'm not speaking up, I don't want to cause problems, or I'm afraid, or whatever the thing is. And now there's like a complete distortion in that because you're not being truthful. So we're seeing it on like a global level. And then in your own life, that can also be reflected. So the more you start to speak your truth in your own personal life, whatever the case is, if it's about world events or if it's about, I don't want that for dinner, it could be shit that's not even important, right? It doesn't seem that important. But you're practicing standing in your truth, your sovereignty, your authenticity. And that's how we ripple out that effect of consciousness and change the world, right? I mean, when really it is about yourself, but this is how we can say, hey, no, this is the kind of world that I want. I want truth. I don't want illusion and distortion and lies and something else to have power over me. Who wants that? Right? Nobody wants that. And so we're doing the opposite of what we think we should be doing. Compliance doesn't get us freedom. It never has. If you look at every single history book, even though they're all written by the winners, but you follow the money, you follow the power and control. Compliance is the most dangerous thing on the planet ever, right? So, and for me personally, I'm like, I see people that are like being really compliant. I'm like, okay, I have compassion, but where is your grit? Who are you? Obviously you don't know who you are because you're just going to let everyone else do the thinking for you. Why?
Yeah. Anytime I've ever made a decision for somebody else, I end up shitting the bed somehow or something just happens that I'm like, I know, back to the basics. And we think like these little mundane choices that we have, even with partners, cooking, that's our gateway. Start
Yeah,
practicing that
practice.
within your life. See how it changes and shifts the dynamics. And then on the macro, you know, by you choosing yourself and what's good for you, you know, like I said before, others will feel that empowerment and can just grasp that and start to do it. But it starts with you, you know, it starts with it owning, you know, your choices in life, and then knowing that this life is yours and nothing else can change it or impact it in any way, but you know. It takes a lot of strength and courage, and what an awesome gift that we have. And I hope this message, you know, reaches who it needs to. And I know it always will.
Yeah.
Danny's like, let's hop on YouTube and let's do a live, and, you know, no subject to mind, but this is what we've been feeling.
Yeah.
And so that's how we knew, you know, this is what is needed to be said right now, because this is what's coming out. So
yeah, and we needed this, you know, we needed to process this and get it out. And you know, so whatever you're feeling like you need to do, and just, you know, take it to heart. And if you want to reach us too, like, so I do human design readings, and I look at people's charts to help them navigate and to give them like the mechanics of how they operate and who they are. And Kayla,
I do quantum healing, different past life regressions, any sort of trauma release work, you know, that's stored there in the subconscious, and also teaching communication courses. And we have one together too that we just put out, the codes of communication. And, you know, communication's always been a big thing for me, as well as Danny, and communicating that truth. But, you know, I had a lot of deconditioning to do, and also a lot of exposure with having to communicate and be in other leadership type of roles. And so this has always been something near and dear to my heart. And I feel like, and we know that this is needed right now by everybody, you know, how we can move the trauma, the emotional charges that we have, and really authentically connect with the world around us and those in our lives.
Absolutely. So codesofcommunication.com is for the course. It's like a 6-week course where we bridge both of the systems that we work with. So like the mechanics of communication and redefining and changing perspectives on understanding that. And then nonviolent communication. And we've kind of created this new formula and understanding for how to navigate dynamics in your relationships to heighten your consciousness, to bridge your relationships, deepen your bonds, all of that, and to really just be authentic no matter what is going on. And then my website, if you want a reading, is soulmapping.life. And Kayla, where can they get a session from you?
Soular.
How do you spell that?
SOULUAR. Soular.
Healing.com. Cool. And we'll put the information in the description here. If you've liked this video, please definitely hit subscribe and like, and we will be on again. And just keep a lookout for the course, and speak your truth no matter what.
Woo, woo!